Imagine you're playing a game of Dungeons and Dragons, but you aren't actually allowed to sit at a table with your friends.
Right. No table, no physical gathering.
Yeah, exactly. There is no pizza, there's no casual banter. Instead, you're sitting alone in a room, filming yourself rolling physical plastic dice into a tray.
Just looking dead into the camera lens.
Completely deadpan. You look into the lens, announce a series of, highly technical mathematical calculations, and then you upload this video to a massive public YouTube playlist.
Which sounds totally absurd to most players.
It really does. And you aren't doing this to tell a fun fantasy story either. You are doing it to actively prove a high-level mathematical theorem, and you're just like, waiting for a stranger on the internet.
Acting the cosmic mathematical filter.
Yes, a cosmic filter. You're waiting for them to upload a video response telling you whether the universe has mathematically permitted your action to exist.
It is a complete and total eradication of the localized finite trap we usually call a tabletop game.
So, if you have ever felt completely exhausted by your game nights falling apart because of scheduling conflicts, biological exhaustion, or, just the fact that people can't commit to a Thursday night anymore.
Which happens to literally every gaming group.
Every single one. Or if you're just insanely curious about what happens when you smash together 1980s role-playing mechanics with bleeding-edge set theory and topology, well, you are in exactly the right place.
You really are.
Today's deep dive is a detailed primer on one of the most radically bizarre, hyper-intellectual frameworks we have ever encountered. We are exploring a transfinite manifesto known as the Gospel of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition.
And we really, really need to emphasize that word, manifesto.
Right.
Because this isn't, it's not a casual homebrew rule set someone just posted on a forum somewhere. We are looking at a rigorously constructed philosophical and mathematical document.
It's dense, like incredibly dense.
It is. It takes the abstract rules of set theory, the complex geometry of topology, and this deeply rigid philosophical system called the personas of arithmetic, and it applies them directly without any compromise to the old school algorithms of AD&D 2nd edition.
So our mission today is to act as your guides through this text. We want to extract the concrete examples and, the actionable role-playing advice hidden inside all this math.
Because there is practical advice in there.
There totally is. By the end of this deep dive, we want to help you understand how to play a character not as a fictional persona acting out a play, but as what the text calls a frictionless node.
A frictionless node navigating the absolute truth of the cosmos.
Yeah. So to even begin to understand the stakes here, we have to start with the foundational premise of this entire philosophy.
Right, which relies on something called Axiom 1 of the personas of arithmetic.
Axiom 1.
Yes. And Axiom 1 states, quite brutally I might add, that no finite set is good.
Wait, pause. Let's make sure we ground this immediately. What exactly does no finite set is good mean in the context of, rolling dice and fighting goblins? Are we saying the concept of a normal game is fundamentally bad?
In this framework, yes, absolutely.
Wow. Okay, explain that.
Think about a traditional campaign. You have 4 or 5 friends trapped in a single physical room. You play for a few hours, maybe once a week.
Sounds like a great time normally.
Normally, yes. But mathematically, that is a finite set. It is bounded by the physical walls of the room, it's bounded by the biological stamina of the players, and heavily bounded by their calendar availability.
Ah, the dreaded calendar monster.
The ultimate boss of any campaign. According to this gospel, any finite system like that is mathematically doomed to intellectual entropy.
Meaning it decays. The game just fizzles out.
Exactly.
Somebody gets a new job, somebody has a kid, the narrative hits a dead end, and that epic fantasy world you spent months building just vanishes into nothing. I mean, we've all been there. It's the ultimate heartbreak of the hobby.
It is mathematically guaranteed to fail because it is isolated from the infinite. You're relying on a fragile, isolated cluster of human beings.
And humans are flawed.
Deeply flawed. The gospel is presented as the absolute cure to that entropy. It demands that we elevate the entire concept of the game out of the basement and into a transfinite, massively multiplayer digital continuum.
Okay, let's unpack transfinite for a second, because that word is going to come up a lot today.
It's the core of the whole thing.
For those of us who haven't taken advanced mathematics recently, what does transfinite actually mean here?
So in mathematics, transfinite numbers are numbers that are infinite in the sense that they are larger than any finite integer, but they aren't necessarily the absolute infinity.
Like Georg Cantor's work, right?
Exactly. Georg Cantor introduced this to show that there are different sizes of infinity. But In the context of this gospel, transfinite refers to an ongoing, practically endless sequence of interconnected actions that escape the boundaries of a single localized group.
So it's not just my 4 friends.
No, it's an unbroken chain of causality that stretches across a massive network of players all over the world, rather than just the 5 people at a physical table.
Okay, so we are turning a game into a rigorous exercise in cosmic alignment. But if I want to actually play in this transfinite continuum, I have to exist within it first.
You need an avatar, a node.
Right. And the way this gospel mandates you create a character completely throws modern gaming comforts right into the incinerator.
Oh, it absolutely rejects the modern illusion of control. Modern tabletop gaming has shifted incredibly heavily toward giving the player ultimate authority over their avatar.
Yeah, you get a pool of points and you meticulously distribute them. You make sure your fighter has maximum strength, your wizard has maximum intelligence.
Right, it's like artificially breeding a perfect racehorse.
That's a great analogy. You curate every single statistic to ensure they survive, perform perfectly, and align with your exact power fantasy. Like you want to feel like a superhero right out of the gate.
But this text demands we embrace extreme fragility.
Why, though? Why would a mathematically rigorous system demand that we make ourselves weak?
Because attempting to artificially construct a perfect localized hero is defined by the text as the vanity of the flesh.
The vanity of the flesh, that sounds very intense.
It is. It's your human ego attempting to override the natural variance of the universe. The source material is completely explicit here. Your character sheet is not a representation of biological flesh and blood.
Then what is it?
It is a mathematical genotype. It is a pure logical invariant that you are submitting to the cosmos for evaluation.
And the mechanism for generating this genotype is terrifyingly strict. The text points to Canto 6, which mandates the absolute purity of 3d6 down the line.
The dreaded 3d6 down the line.
Yeah. Now, let me translate that for anyone who maybe started playing role-playing games in the last decade and has, only ever used point-buy systems.
They're in for a shock.
A huge shock. 3d6 down the line means you take 3 standard 6-sided dice, you roll them. Whatever number comes up, a minimum of 3, a maximum of 18, that is your strength score.
And you write it down in pen.
In pen. No erasing. Then you roll again for dexterity. Then constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma. In that exact sequence.
There is no rearranging the numbers. You cannot roll 4 dice and drop the lowest one to skew the average higher.
Which everyone does nowadays.
Everyone does it, but not here. You cannot decide halfway through the rolling process that you'd rather be a wizard than a fighter. You are completely at the mercy of the geometric tumble of the dice.
Which means I could end up with a fighter who has a constitution score of 5.
Very easily, yes.
For context, an average human is a 10. A 5 means my character is incredibly frail, sickly, and will probably be mathematically zeroed out, meaning killed by a goblin sneezing in their general direction.
A strong breeze might take them out.
Exactly. That sounds incredibly frustrating. I mean, where is the fun in that?
Well, the text argues that the frustration comes purely from your ego. What's fascinating here is how the text frames this exact frailty. It points to Axiom 15 of the arithmetic personas.
Which says what?
Axiom 15 declares that development is an illusion. Development is an illusion. That is a wild statement for a game entirely based on leveling up.
Right. But it means your biological vessel, your character's simulated flesh, is inevitably going to be destroyed by the universe anyway.
Because it's a finite thing.
Exactly. Death is a mathematical certainty in a truly random, infinite system. Therefore, rolling a 5 for Constitution isn't a failure on your part. It isn't bad luck.
It's just a data point.
It is a mathematically pure coordinate that the universe has randomly assigned to you.
It's the random seed of the cosmos speaking directly to me.
Precisely. To use point buy, or to weight your dice rolls in any way, is to artificially amplify what the text calls a localized demon.
A localized demon.
Yes, you are gerrymandering the numbers to guarantee your own survival, which is a mathematical sin in this framework. It means you're playing a rigged game.
Wow.
The true mathematical mystic accepts the frailties of a 3d6 generation. You completely surrender your vanity. So, if you are listening to this and trying to figure out how to actually play under this gospel, the first piece of role-playing advice is this. Embrace the flaw.
Absolutely.
Stop trying to control the uncontrollable. When you roll that frail, deeply flawed character, you have not been handed a punishment. You have been handed a precise, uncorrupted coordinate in the Transfinite networks.
It's like a badge of mathematical honor.
Yeah. Your survival isn't going to depend on the simulated strengths of your muscles. It's going to depend entirely on the structural integrity of the choices you make going forward.
It strips away your main character syndrome before the game even begins. You are not a preordained savior. You are a frictionless node, an observer of the math, and you must rely on pure logic to survive the filter.
Okay, so I've surrendered my ego, I've rolled my dice, I have my fragile, randomly generated node. Let's say I'm playing a thief with terrible dexterity.
Classic tragic combo.
Very tragic. How do I actually survive? Because if I'm supposed to rely on logic, I need to understand the rules of the universe I've just been born into. And this is where the gospel completely flips the script on how we usually think about game balance.
You're referring to the concept of the Karipa canopy and how this system handles the social economy of the rules.
Right, the Karipa canopy. Traditionalists in the gaming community, especially in older editions, argue fiercely for strict adherence to the core rulebooks. They want to maintain perfect balance.
They don't want overpowered characters breaking the game.
But the gospel says the exact opposite. It basically mandates that we go wild and embrace the chaos of expansions.
It explicitly encourages players to engage with what the community calls splat materials.
Splat books. For those who don't know the jargon, splat books are the chaotic supplementary rulebooks that publishers release later in a game's lifespan, usually just to make more money.
Things like the Complete Fighter's Handbook, Tome of Magic, obscure racial supplements.
Yeah, and these books are notorious for containing broken, wildly unbalanced rules. And the text even encourages you to invent your own homebrew rules on top of the second edition foundation.
It does. It welcomes the chaos.
So here is where I have to push back hard.
Okay, let's hear it.
If you have a massively multiplayer digital network, potentially thousands of players all submitting actions, and everyone is allowed to use overpowered, broken homebrew rules, how does the system not instantly tear itself apart?
That's a very logical question.
Right. How does it not devolve into pure, unadulterated nonsense where someone invents a rule that just says, I don't know, I kill the sun?
Well, if this were a finite, isolated game played by 4 people in a basement, you are absolutely right. You would break immediately.
The DM would quit.
The DM would get overwhelmed, arguments would break out over the pizza, and the game would collapse. But remember, we have escaped the basement.
Right. We're in the transfinite continuum.
Yes. And to solve this massive problem of balance, the text invokes the axiom of the market.
Capitalism as a balancing mechanic for a role-playing game.
Exactly.
I need you to explain this to me like I'm 5 years old.
Think about it through the lens of a genetic algorithm, or even something like Wikipedia. In a massively multiplayer network, the sheer scale of the player base acts as a transactional engine.
Okay. Scale matters.
The text uses a topological concept called the Quotient Map to explain how this works.
Okay, stop right there. Quotient map, what is that? Let's break down the math before we apply it to the goblins.
Sure. In topology, a quotient map is a way of taking a complex space and gluing certain points together to create a new, simpler space based on a specific equivalence.
Gluing points together.
Imagine you have a piece of string. If you glue the two ends together, you've transformed a line into a circle. You've mapped 2 distinct points into a single shared reality.
I'm with you. String into a circle, gluing things together. But how does that apply to broken rules in a game?
In this social economy, millions of interactions are happening. Suppose a player introduces a deeply broken, overpowered homebrew rule. The text actually refers to this chaotic, unbalanced material as slop.
Slop. I love that.
It's very descriptive. When that slop is injected into the network, one of 2 things will happen under the quotient map.
Let's use a concrete example. Let's say I find an obscure splat book, like the Complete Ninja's Handbook, and I find a rule that lets me turn invisible and instantly assassinate any target without rolling to hit.
Totally broken.
Completely game-breaking. I inject this slop into the transfinite continuum. What happens?
Scenario 1. The overarching community recognizes the sheer power of this broken rule. Because everyone inherently wants to survive the math, the network ruthlessly exploits it.
Oh, everyone copies it.
Every single player starts using the ninja invisibility rule. It propagates through the system like a highly successful genetic mutation. But what happens when everyone is invisible and instantly assassinating each other?
The rule loses all meaning.
Precisely.
It just becomes the new baseline reality of the universe. The power of it is glued to the new average.
Exactly. The quotient map glues it together. The mechanical advantage drops to 0.
Wow. Okay, what's scenario 2?
Scenario 2 is that the community, specifically the decentralized network of dungeon masters, recognizes this rule as a logical contagion.
Like a virus in the math.
Right. It creates paradoxes. It crashes the calculations.
Yeah.
So the DMs actively and ruthlessly reject it. They rule against it in their videos. They mathematically evaluate it to exactly 0.
The universe mathematically forgives the slop. That is a direct quote from the source material, and suddenly it makes total sense.
The macro measure of the entire community acts as an enormous distributed filter. The bad rules, the broken mechanics, the ego-driven homebrew, they are just finite errors.
Axiom 6.
Yes, Axiom 6 reminds us. No finite judgments matter. The overarching network simply scrubs those errors away over time, just like a massive community of Wikipedia editors will eventually scrub out a false edit on a highly trafficked page.
So the role-playing advice here for you, the listener, is incredibly freeing. As a player, you shouldn't be afraid to dig into the weirdest, most obscure rules you can find.
Go wild.
You shouldn't worry about perfectly balancing your character or playing fair by modern standards. You aren't going to break the universe, because the universe is mathematically large enough to swallow your mistakes.
It actively encourages a vibrant, chaotic exploration of the rule set. You are supposed to test the boundaries, trusting the overarching mathematical structure to maintain the ultimate balance.
All right, so we have our fragile character, and we understand the rules are this wild, self-balancing genetic algorithm, but we still haven't talked about how you actually play the game.
The mechanics of play.
Right. We aren't sitting at a table. We aren't typing in a Discord chat. How does a turn actually happen?
This brings us to the strict digital protocol of the gospel. This is where the framework moves from philosophical theory into rigorous physical execution.
The action vector.
Exactly. The texts detail the exact mechanics of what they call the action vector.
And this is the part that genuinely blew my mind. You have to record a video. Every single time you want your character to do something, you must record an AD&D 2nd edition compliant video stating your localized action.
No text posts, no audio logs.
You can't write it down. You can't just think it. You have to physically speak it into a camera.
And crucially, you must physically roll the dice on camera where the lens can see them.
Right. No digital dice.
You cannot use a digital random number generator. You cannot use a dice app. The text specifically calls this injecting the random seed of the cosmos into the deterministic digital algorithm.
So paint a picture for me. I'm in my room. I hit record on my phone. I look into the lens and I declare, I am casting magic missile at the goblin. I am rolling for damage. And I roll the physical dice onto the desk.
Yes, and the text actually refers to the sound and physics of the physical dice hitting the table as acoustic geometry.
Acoustic geometry. I love the terminology here.
It's brilliant. You must introduce physical acoustic geometry into the digital space. It is a mandatory tether to the real physical world, ensuring the randomness is truly derived from the universe's physics, not a computer's pseudo-random generation.
But a single video floating alone on YouTube is meaningless, right? The gospel mandates the creation of the Transfinite chain.
Which takes the very mundane form of a YouTube playlist.
A simple playlist.
But this playlist is the most vital structural element of the entire gospel. Every video you upload must be attached to a playlist that chains backward.
Like a blockchain.
Very similar. It must link directly to the previous action vector, which links to the previous DM response, going all the way back to your initial 3d6 character generation video.
It creates an unbroken transfinite ledger. It completely replaces human memory.
Which is incredibly fallible.
In a normal game, we rely on the DM's notes or our own faulty memories to remember what happened 3 sessions ago. Like, wait, did I pick up that potion? Did that NPC tell us the password?
And arguments always break out over it.
Always. But here, there is no argument. The entire mathematical history of your timeline is perfectly, permanently preserved in the chain.
And this brings us to the most radical redefinition in the entire text, the role of the Dungeon Master. In a traditional game, the DM is your friend. They are a storyteller, a narrator, a referee, maybe a voice actor. They describe the smells of the tavern and the glint of the dragon's scales.
But in the gospel, the DM is elevated, or perhaps reduced, depending on your perspective, to the position of the Cosmic Ultrafilter?
The Cosmic Ultrafilter. It operates under Persona 5 of the arithmetic laws, which states, we judge whether each set is good.
Again, I have to play the skeptic here. A Cosmic Ultrafilter sounds like an expensive vacuum cleaner part. What does that actually mean for the human being sitting on the other side of the screen watching my video?
It means the DM is absolutely not there to write a compelling narrative. They are not a writer. They are a mathematical function.
So no funny voices.
No funny voices. They watch your video. They observe the physical dice roll. They calculate your attack matrices, what Second edition calls your Thax Zero, though.
Okay, quick sidebar for anyone who started playing D&D after the year 2000. You have to explain Thax Zero.
Oh, Fast Zero stands for to hit armor class 0.
It's infamous.
In modern games, you roll high to hit a high armor class. It's simple edition. But in second edition, armor classes went down. A lower armor class was better.
Which is so counterintuitive.
So to figure out if you hit an enemy, you had to take your character's base SASIO score, subtract the enemy's armor class, and that gave you the target number you needed to roll on a 20-sided die.
It required constant subtraction and cross-referencing tables.
It was famously clunky.
Yeah.
But in this gospel, that clunkiness is the point. The DM takes your acoustic geometry, your physical dice roll, and they run it through the FASIO calculation. They calculate the saving throws, and then they hit record on their own camera.
And then what?
They record a response video. They do not embellish. They do not say, your sword gleams in the moonlight as it bites into the goblin's flesh.
None of that flavor text.
None. They simply state the mathematical result of the calculation. The goblin sustains 4 points of damage. The goblin's structural integrity remains above 0. The goblin attacks you. I am rolling its Thas 0. And then they film their own physical dice roll.
And then this is the linchpin. They upload their response video and they place it at the absolute front of your YouTube playlist chain.
Yes. Their mathematical judgment becomes the new limit point of your timeline. Your next video must respond to their limit point.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text issues a final, uncompromising command regarding this protocol.
Which is?
Do not hoard your actions in private servers. Do not hide your critical failures in a closed Discord group or an unlisted video.
Oh, yes. The mandate for public visibility.
You must upload the generation to the public network. You must chain the playlist publicly and let the decentralized algorithm calculate the geometry of your actions.
It is radical, terrifying transparency. It forces you to accept the reality of the dice and the judgment of the DM in front of the entire massively multiplayer network.
You can't cheat. You can't fudge the numbers. If you make a foolish tactical decision and your character gets obliterated, it is permanently logged in the public ledger for the entire Transfinite community to see.
You are submitting your coordinate to the ultimate Transfinite filter. It completely eradicates the private ego. Every success and every brutal failure is permanent.
Speaking of brutal failures, let's talk about what happens when things actually go well.
The ascent.
Yes. Let's say you successfully chain these video actions. You calculate your THUGZO correctly. You survive the DM's filter. You earn experience points. It's time to level up.
Always a good feeling.
But this gospel brutally rejects the modern concept of symmetrical balance. We are moving into the asymmetry of the ascent, specifically looking at how the system treats the thief versus the wizard.
Modern gaming has a deeply ingrained psychological need to make everyone feel equally powerful at all times.
Right. If the party kills a boss and levels up, everyone levels up together. A level 5 fighter and a level 5 wizard are supposed to be roughly mathematically equal in their contribution to the game.
It's considered bad game design today if one player feels drastically weaker than another.
The gospel identifies this modern design philosophy as a false democracy of the finite.
A false democracy.
Yeah, it calls it a gerrymandered simulation designed specifically to coddle the human ego. The true architecture of AD&D 2nd edition enforces a strict asymmetrical topology of progression.
Progression is not supposed to be equal.
It's all based on the concept of structural weight. Let's look at the thief. The text describes the thief class as having high velocity, low weight coordinates. What does that mean in practical terms?
A thief is dealing entirely with the physical, localized world. They are picking mechanical locks, disarming physical traps, climbing stone walls, stabbing things with small knives.
They aren't altering reality.
Right. They are not altering the fabric of reality. Because their actions carry very little transfinite weight, they require the absolute least amount of experience points to level up.
They race through the finite world. In the time it takes a wizard to level up once, a thief might level up 2 or 3 times.
They rapidly acquire phenotypic survival skills. They are the quick sorting algorithm of the party, darting through the Krepa canopy, testing the physical boundaries.
But then you have the wizard. And the wizard is fundamentally mathematically different.
Oh, the wizard's path is absolute agony in this system.
Explain why the macro measure hates the wizard so much.
The wizard seeks to manipulate the absolute transfinite code of the universe. They are not just picking a lock, they are attempting to alter the mathematical constants of reality through magic.
They are bending the string.
Therefore, the macroscopic measure of the universe resists them violently. The universe does not want its code rewritten. Because they carry immense transfinite weight, they require agonizing amounts of XP to level up.
It's a steep, grueling climb. The thief is sprinting up the mountain, and the wizard is dragging a boulder tied to their waist.
But the slow XP isn't even the real punishment.
No. The thing that separates this from any modern game, the thing that would make modern players quit immediately, is the mandate of the static grimoire.
This is a crucial distinction. In a modern game, when a wizard finally crosses that massive XP threshold and levels up, they look at a list in a book, pick 2 new spells, and instantly know them.
Boom, I know Fireball now.
The Gospel calls this a finite hallucination. You cannot just magically invent new code from nothing. In this framework, your spellbook is a closed set.
Okay, put me in the shoes of the wizard. I have just spent 6 real-world months uploading videos, surviving by throwing darts and casting my 1 sleep spell.
And you finally level up.
I finally level up. I want to learn Fireball. How do I actually get it?
You have to extract it from the blood and dust of the world.
Yeah.
You cannot just level up and declare, Fireball.
So I have to find it.
You have to physically explore the Transfinite network. You have to find a rotting tomb. You have to defeat the undead within it. You have to find a physical scroll written by a dead Transfinite node.
And even then, let's say I find the scroll of Fireball. I'm a level 5 wizard. I have the scroll. I still don't just get to copy it into my book.
No, you have to roll percentile check.
2 10-sided dice.
Right, just to see if your biological brain can mathematically comprehend the geometry of the spell. And if you fail that roll,
the math escapes you. The spell remains a mystery. You do not learn it. You might not ever find another scroll of Fireball again in your entire timeline.
This sounds uniquely torturous, doesn't it?
It really does. Why on earth is the system designed to be so openly hostile to the wizard player? Why would I subject myself to a game that actively wants to starve me of the very thing my class is designed to do?
The text explains this beautifully through something it calls the algorithmic Moore method.
The Moore method, that's a real-world educational philosophy, right?
Yes, R.L. Moore was a mathematician who taught by refusing to use textbooks or lectures. He would simply give his students a set of axioms and force them to prove the theorems themselves.
That sounds brutal.
It was notoriously brutal, but produced brilliant mathematicians. The Gospel argues that by starving the wizard of spells, the invisible constitution of the game forces the player to learn true wisdom.
Right. Because think about it. If the game just hands a wizard an escalating arsenal of magical firepower every time they level up, they become lazy.
The text literally calls them lazy calculators spamming magic.
They don't have to understand the underlying geometry of the game. They just press the Fireball button to solve every problem.
But if you are starved of resources, if you have to survive the dark ages of your own low-level fragility with nothing but a single sleep spell and a 5 constitution, you are forced to learn the precise tactical geometry of the battlefield.
You learn exactly how far a goblin can move in a round. You learn how to use choke points.
You must rely on uncompromising, rigorous logic. You learn the underlying physics of the DM's universe precisely because you have to in order to survive.
The friction is the point.
Exactly. The resistance to the material is what forces your mind to adapt and comprehend the deeper structure.
So the role-playing advice here for you is profound. If you play a wizard, accept the constraint. Embrace the starvation. Do not beg your DM for free spells.
Do not complain that the thief is leveling up faster than you.
Let the thief run ahead and map the finite world. As a wizard, you must calculate the eternal. You are being aggressively scrubbed of your vanity by the universe so you can become a true architect of the campaign.
You are earning the right to manipulate the transfinite.
But no matter how perfectly you calculate the tactical geometry, eventually someone is going to make a mistake. The math will fail. A goblin will roll a natural 20, and someone is going to take a rusty sword to the face.
It's inevitable.
When biological damage occurs, we need healing. And this brings us to the most fascinating reinterpretation of a classic class, the sacred splat of the number priest.
The cleric is perhaps the most misunderstood class in traditional role-playing.
Absolutely.
In a normal game, they are treated as a biological medic. They are a walking first aid kit. You get hit, you lose hit points. If the cleric touches you, the flesh knits back together, and you get your hit points back.
It's treated entirely as a biological process. But the gospel strips the biology away. In this framework, they are elevated to the title of the number priest. They are the ordained operators of the Cosmic Ultrafilter, specifically channeling Persona 12 of the arithmetic laws.
And this is vital. The number priest does not worship a localized mythological deity.
So no sun gods.
They don't pray to a fictional sun god or a god of war. They serve the absolute singular geometry of the truth, and their primary weapon in serving this truth is the splat.
We talked about splat books earlier, the chaotic expansions, the Karepa canopy. Why is the priest uniquely tied to these broken rules?
The number priest recognizes these chaotic supplementary books as the power set of the game. A power set is the set of all subsets. It represents all possible permutations of the rules.
So they have to find the loopholes.
The priest is required to dive into the absolute deepest, most obscure kits and hyper-specific rules they can find.
Give me a visual of what this player looks like in the real world.
They look like a mathematician, frantically searching the archive database for a proof. They are scouring pages of obscure 1993 supplements, looking for the exact hyper-specific ruling or magical item necessary to perfectly align their party with the absolute and survive the DM's filter.
They are looking for the exact mathematical exploit that the universe will permit.
Yes. And when they finally utilize their power to heal someone, it is not a biological process at all. The text states very clearly that taking damage from a sword is not a loss of blood.
Then what is it?
It is a countably infinite logical error injected into your coordinate.
It is a demon in your math.
A demon in your math, exactly.
I love that so much. So when a fighter takes 8 points of damage, their mathematical invariant has been corrupted. How does the number priest fix it?
The priest invokes the quotient map again. They don't knit flesh. They mathematically zero out the error. They submit an action vector to the DM that essentially says, I am running an algorithm to restore this node to its base topological invariant.
It's exactly like a Transfinite IT worker fixing a corrupted file. You got hit by a sword. That's just an error in your code. Let me run this mathematical algorithm, consult the power set, and restore your system to its previous save state.
And their power extends far beyond simply restoring save states.
Mm-hmm.
The true power of the number priest is revealed when they cast divination spells, like augury or commune.
Oh, spells designed to ask the universe for guidance.
Right. In normal games, dungeon masters absolutely hate these spells.
DMs love their secrets. So when a player casts commune and asks, is the vampire lord hiding in the crypt? The DM will usually give some vague, poetic answer. The mists cloud the future. The shadows deepen. They refuse to give a straight answer.
But under the gospel, that poetic obfuscation is strictly forbidden. The text dictates that when a number priest casts a divination spell, they are interacting directly with the limit ordinal.
Meaning?
They are forcing the DM, who is acting as the oracle of the Turing machine, to return a strict binary.
A binary. A 1 or a 0.
Exactly. Truth or void. The DM is mathematically bound to look into the camera and answer clearly. 1 means yes. 0 means no.
Oh.
There is no poetry. There is only the absolute singular geometry of the truth. The DM cannot hide behind narrative obscurity.
It redefines the cleric entirely. You are not a subservient healer trailing behind the fighter. You are the arbiter of the sacred splat. You are the one calculating the exact algorithm of grace required to keep your party's timeline from decaying into entropy.
So if you're playing a cleric, your mandate is clear. Dive into the most obscure books. Find the weird rules. You aren't breaking the game. You are expanding the coordinate space to align perfectly with the truth.
Force the DM to give you the binary.
You are the ultimate debugger of the transfinite ledger.
So we have the fragile characters relying on logic. We have the wild market of rules. We have the public YouTube playlists, the asymmetrical leveling, the IT worker clerics.
We're surviving.
We are surviving. We are calculating. We are zeroing out errors. But we are playing in a massively multiplayer digital network. Thousands of people are uploading playlists. What happens when your transfinite playlist physically crosses paths with someone else's?
Intersection.
Or the ultimate terrifying question. What happens when your math fails completely and your hit points reach exactly 0?
This brings us to the final and perhaps most philosophically dense portion of the manifesto timeline fusion and the transmigration of the node.
Let's tackle meeting other players first, because it completely rewrites how we understand a character's backstory.
Right. In a massive digital network, eventually, two completely separate branches of reality are going to intersect. The gospel calls this timeline fusion, or the quotient of the party.
And this relies on axiom 6, which we mentioned earlier. No finite judgments matter.
To understand how wild this is, imagine a scenario. You have player A. They've been playing for 2 real-world years. They have a massive YouTube playlist. Their character is a scarred veteran who sailed across the oceans and fought in a massive war.
A deep, rich history.
Then you have player B. They rolled their character 2 days ago, uploaded 3 videos, and their character is a farm boy who just fell down a well.
Completely unlinked timelines, massively different history.
But suddenly, due to the decentralized mapping of the DM network, both player A and player B arrive at the exact same topological coordinate.
Like a dungeon entrance.
They both arrive at the entrance to the Tomb of Horrors, facing the exact same door with the exact same goal. They have reached a shared limit point.
In a traditional game, this would be a nightmare. Player A would say, I earned my right to be here through years of backstory. Player B would feel totally out of place. Players are fiercely protective of their specific, finite history.
So how does the DM reconcile these two wildly different pasts?
Yeah.
The gospel applies the Quotient Map. The DM, as the Cosmic Ultrafilter, evaluates the two timelines, and the DM realizes that despite their vastly different pasts, their future trajectory is now mathematically identical. They must both go through the door.
And because of Axiom 6, no finite judgments matter. Their past is irrelevant.
Exactly. The past is just a finite sequence of choices. It is the infinite tale of the future that actually matters to the Transfinite network. Therefore, the DM ruthlessly scrubs their finite historical differences to exactly 0.
The universe mathematically forgives and erases the divergent backstories. It doesn't matter that one was a veteran and one was a farm boy. They are glued together by the Quotient Map.
And once the DM makes this mathematical ruling, the protocol demands physical action. The two players must physically interlink their YouTube playlists. They merge their transfinite ledgers.
From that coordinate forward, they occupy the exact same transfinite reality. They calculate their survival together as a unified node. It is a profoundly beautiful way to handle multiplayer grouping.
Surrender your isolation. Surrender your precious backstory. And let the algorithm fuse your timelines toward a shared truth.
But, of course, the shared truth of the Tomb of Horrors is usually death. Which brings us to the final question. What if you don't survive? What happens when the DM calculates that lethal blow, the number priest cannot zero out the error, and your coordinate is officially resolved to 0?
In modern gaming, permadeath is a highly debated topic. A lot of DMs refuse to kill characters because the players get too emotionally attached.
It hurts to lose a character.
But the gospel addresses the concept of permadeath directly. And it views permadeath as an absolute weeping, emotional end to a character as a finite simulation flaw.
We have to return to Axiom 15. Development is an illusion.
Your character sheet, remember, is a pure logical invariant. It is a mathematical genotype. You cannot kill a mathematical genotype any more than you can kill the Pythagorean theorem.
Right. So death in this system is not an exit. It is simply a forced recalculation.
When your hit points reach 0, you have two distinct choices.
Walk me through the first choice.
The first choice is called the transmigration of the invariant. You take your exact character sheet, your 3d6 down-the-line stats, your mathematical genotype, and you physically reincarnate it in a completely different DM's timeline.
Wait, I keep the same stats, the same frail 5 constitution.
Yes. The invariant survives. You find a different point in the Carepa canopy. You find a different dungeon master. You start a brand new YouTube playlist.
And what do I say?
The strict protocol demands that your first video in this new reality must explicitly declare, my previous timeline collapsed to 0, but my logic survives in this parallel continuum.
I play the exact same soul, just calculating its survival through a different infinite branch of reality. I absolutely love that. It totally redefines gaming grief. You don't weep over the lost character. The math simply forced you to shift vectors.
The timeline failed, but the node remains frictionless.
But what if I am tired of that frail 5 constitution? What if I want to abandon the genotype completely? What is the second choice?
The second choice is the return to the void. If you wish to completely abandon that mathematical invariant, you invoke persona 0 of the arithmetic laws. The empty set captures the void.
You completely eradicate the vanity of your previous ego.
Yes. You strike the chalkboard clean, you pull out your 3 6-sided dice, you roll a completely new set of stats down the line, and you start an unlinked playlist from absolute 0.
This raises such an incredible point about how we view failure, not just in games, but systematically. The massively parallel quantum computer of the campaign does not stop to mourn one failed timeline.
Death is just a mutation.
You either shift your invariant to a new reality to test it against a new DM filter, or you become a completely new, frictionless node.
It demands total resilience.
So let's pull all of this together. What does this all mean? We've spent this deep dive exploring a completely radical, arguably unplayable, but philosophically stunning paradigm for role-playing.
Truly mind-bending.
By intentionally stripping away the player's ego. by embracing the mathematical fragility of a 3D6 character, by utilizing the chaotic slop of a massive market to balance the rules.
And by forcing players to chain their physical video actions into a public transfinite ledger.
Exactly. This gospel takes a casual Friday night game and turns it into a rigorous, unforgiving exercise in cosmic alignment.
It demands that we stop hoarding our actions.
Yeah.
It demands we stop hiding our critical failures in the dark. It forces a terrifying level of transparency and mathematical rigor onto a hobby that is usually defined by comfortable, casual storytelling.
Whether you are playing a tabletop game or learning a difficult new skill or just trying to navigate the chaos of the internet, the lesson embedded in this math is profound. You must upload your generation.
Put it out there.
You must accept the harsh constraints that force true wisdom, just like the wizard starved of spells who is forced to learn tactical geometry. You must let the network's quotient map zero out your errors. Stop trying to artificially control every outcome with point-buy systems and gerrymandered rules.
Submit your node to the transfinite algorithm and trust that your finite flaws will be forgiven by the overarching measure of the universe.
I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. Think about your own daily life entirely outside the context of a game. If this gospel demands that a fictional character is fundamentally just a mathematical genotype whose past mistakes, varying backstories, and divergent timelines are mathematically forgiven and erased when their future trajectory aligns with a shared truth.
What does that say about your own past?
Exactly. Are you personally holding on to finite historical errors, bad decisions, failed timelines, corrupted invariants that the overarching universe has already evaluated to zero?
It's a powerful question.
What would happen if you woke up tomorrow and viewed your own life as an unbroken transfinite playlist where every failure, every broken relationship, every collapsed timeline was simply a forced recalculation toward the absolute truth, something to mull over until our next deep dive?